So I recently wrote an email to my list of thousands of Lyme disease patients, and they seem to like it a lot, so I'm going to share it with you today. And if you want to get onto my email list, you can get a free ebook where I wrote the 6 top methods that we use to heal from Lyme disease. And you'll be on my newsletter, which I send out every single day, with the best tips and tricks for how to get better from Lyme disease and how to heal the body from the inside out. If you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the description below this video so you can sign up to get your free ebook and get on our newsletter so you can get these emails and learn the latest and greatest about Lyme disease before everybody else. So in this email, I wrote about the myths around Lyme disease, the lies that people will say, and the untruths that people share and spread about Lyme disease. See, when you have Lyme disease and you tell somebody that you have it, everybody always knows somebody with Lyme disease, and everybody always has some weird advice for you or some weird thing that they heard about Lyme disease that they try to tell you. So it's my job to give you the truth about Lyme disease so you know when people know what they're talking about or when you know you should just avoid that person when it comes to Lyme disease. You know, I'm not saying you have to be rude to anybody or cut anybody off or tell people they're wrong, but you can just simply not take their advice if they just don't know the truth about a given subject. So with Lyme disease, there's a bunch of things people say that just aren't true. And the first one is that if you don't think you've been bitten by a tick, then you don't have Lyme disease. See, that's not true, because most of the people that myself and other Lyme doctors talk to that have Lyme disease and even tested positive for Lyme disease and have a diagnosis don't recall being bitten by a tick, or they remember being bitten by a tick, but it was years and years and years ago. For my case specifically, I thought I hadn't gotten bitten by a tick. I thought, what do you mean? I haven't had any tick bites. But when I think back, I remember getting bitten by a tick when I was like 5 years old. My mom found a tick on me and she told me the story. And I said, well, okay, so it's been 20 years and now I have Lyme disease 20 years later. And that's not an uncommon story. I hear it all the time when I'm working with Lyme victims and Lyme patients. They always have that story where they got bitten by a tick a really, really long time ago, and that couldn't be from this, could it? Yes, it can. So even if you don't remember being bitten by a tick at all, it's possible that you have Lyme disease. So that's the first myth. The second Lyme disease myth is that the tick has to be embedded for 36 to 48 hours in order to spread infection. And that's simply not true, because the moment a tick bites you, tons of different bacteria and microbes are able to get into the body. The only thing stopping these microbes is they're very, very smart, for lack of a better term. I mean, they're microbes, they're not really smart, but the way that they operate is very based on their own survival. And so the things that they do actually make a lot of logical sense, because they want to survive for as long as possible inside their host. So one of the things they do is they actually, before rushing into the blood like most microbes do, Lyme microbes, borrelia burgdorferi, actually find out what the host is. And they change their DNA to try to mimic the host's immune cells before entering into the body. So that's why where the myth comes from, that, it has to be on for a certain amount of time in order for the infection to occur. It's just not true, because technically they don't have to wait at all. They could just rush right in. But since they're so smart and they're doing things that are geared so much towards their survival, they oftentimes do take a little bit of time before they get into the blood, but there's no rule or reason that they have to do that. They're just trying to watch out for themselves, and they're very cautious, slow-moving, low-virulent microbes that are not like other microbes, where they're not just rushing in and causing this crazy infection with a big flare-up. It's like a low-grade, just trying to skate by without being noticed. And that's what we're dealing with. And that's why sometimes it does take some time, but there's no rule about how long exactly it needs to be. If you get bitten by a tick at all, there's a chance that you have Lyme disease. And if you get bitten by a tick and you notice it, a great thing that you can do is actually just get on antibiotics, specifically doxycycline, and you will be able to avoid any Lyme disease symptoms probably a lot easier, a lot faster, because there's no way that the Lyme microbes or any microbes can survive in your bloodstream if you hit it with antibiotics within the same day, within the same 24-hour period. I mean, there's like a 99% chance that you just kill it, eradicate everything that would have possibly caused you years and years of damage, years and years of terrible symptoms can be completely avoided with just taking some antibiotics immediately after tick bite. But most of the time, that's not what people do. And honestly, there needs to be a lot more spread about that message. There needs to be a lot more people talking about this so that people even know to do that. And that's part of my mission here at LymeWars and at HealthSpark, is to share that message of Lyme disease because it affected me and so many of my loved ones in my life. The third myth is that if you don't have a bullseye rash, that you don't have Lyme disease. That's actually not true. In fact, kind of the inverse is true. If you do have a bullseye rash, then you do have Lyme disease. If it's an EM, erythema migrans rash, you definitely have Lyme disease. And any literate doctor will see the rash and say, you have Lyme disease, here's a prescription for antibiotics immediately if they see that you have that EM rash. But just because you don't have that rash doesn't mean that you don't have Lyme disease. There's many, many people. In fact, I believe the last number I saw was about 40% of people or it might have been 30% of people have the rash, and the rest of the people, that's 60 to 70% of people don't ever get that EM rash. So we can't say that just because you don't have the rash means you don't have Lyme disease. That's not true. That's a complete myth. The fourth Lyme lie is if you don't have arthritis, you don't have Lyme disease. See, arthritis is one of the symptoms, and it's not actually arthritis, it's arthritic pain in the joints. It's because Lyme microbes, they like to find deep, dark areas like joints to hide and to steal your collagen. So a lot of symptoms that people get have to do with achy joints. On top of that, our immune system tends to overreact to Lyme microbes because they can't really find them. So your immune system's kind of like in overdrive. And it ends up creating a ton of inflammation that ends up hurting and breaking down the joints as well. So one important thing that I always say is to use a collagen supplement to fight back against that breakdown of joint pain and the breakdown of collagen in the body. So that's why we offer a collagen supplement at 50% off when you get your LymeWars Herb Box at LymeDiseaseWars.com. If you're interested, go check it out. But again, arthritic joints and arthritis is just simply one symptom that you can have with Lyme disease. It's like saying if you don't have a headache, you don't have Lyme disease. It's just one of the symptoms that happen, but that doesn't mean that if you don't have it, then Lyme disease doesn't exist. That's silly. Here's a big myth. If you have a negative Lyme test, you don't have Lyme. That's unfortunately false because we have so many false negatives out there from testing just not being very accurate. Some people estimate tests are 50-50, meaning you can flip a coin and find out if you have Lyme disease. That's just sad. Other people have estimated, as much as 40% false negatives, which is almost 50%. It's just terrible. It's not a good thing at all. So there's a lot of false negatives around Lyme disease, and the reason is because testing really focuses on the antibodies that are occurring from Lyme disease. Most of the tests are around antibodies. So if you're not, reacting to the Lyme disease in that specific moment when you get that specific test, then, which is very likely because, again, these microbes know how to hide and evade the immune system. Sometimes our immune system isn't even reacting to them at all. So if you don't have those antibodies created for that microbe yet, then you get a negative test, even though you might actually have the Lyme microbes living inside of you, taking your nutrients and evading your immune system. So we got to be careful with that. If you have a negative test, it doesn't mean that you don't have Lyme disease. It just means that, you have a negative test. It's one step away from, okay, maybe I don't have Lyme disease. Maybe we can look in some other areas and figure it out. But it doesn't mean that you're just 100% in the clear. Unfortunately, as much as I wish that a negative test did mean you were in the clear, it just unfortunately doesn't. The next one is really common. If you don't live in, fill in the state, right? If you don't live in Pennsylvania or Maryland or Connecticut, then you don't have Lyme disease. This is things that people say. You have to live in a specific region. That's completely untrue. They found Lyme disease cases in all 50 states of the United States of America, plus other places like the UK, Germany, New Zealand. I'm sure there's a ton more other than that I haven't named, but Lyme disease is very prevalent globally at this point, and it's an actual epidemic. People don't really know that much about it because it flies under the radar. And the amount of people that actually have Lyme disease and the amount of people that have a diagnosis are so far apart that it's very difficult for people to talk about and know about Lyme disease in a deep, deep sense. So it doesn't only get limited to specific regions. While it may be more prevalent in certain regions, it's most likely because there's a large area of woods, or there's a general culture of going hiking, or a general culture of being in nature, or a really high population of white-tailed deer that spread the ticks, or whitefoot mouse that spread the ticks. So it's important to know that it's not specific to any certain region. Personally, I got my Lyme disease when I lived in Pennsylvania, lived there my whole life, went in the woods all the time, spent lots of time in the woods. There's a huge population of white-tailed deer there. In fact, in my house growing up, we would see groups and groups of deer walking by the house. So it's not uncommon for people in Pennsylvania to get Lyme disease, but Lyme disease has been found in every single state, and probably at this point, almost every country. Not every country, but a lot of countries are experiencing the symptoms and the epidemic of Lyme disease. The next one is a quick one. Ticks are dormant in the winter. That's untrue. Ticks can survive in the winter. They don't go dormant for any specific period of time. They just are always around. And sometimes it's harder for them to survive and to live in the winter if there's a ton of snow on the ground, obviously. But they usually have a host at that point, and they're stuck to some deer going for a ride all winter. So they're not dormant in the winter. And finally, the last Lyme lie, the big myth that I'm going to dispel right now, is that if you still have Lyme disease after taking 10 days to 13 days of antibiotics, then you don't have Lyme disease. That is a myth, and it's just not true. See, some people actually still believe that's true to this day, even though completely regardless of the fact that there's tons of people reporting symptoms after taking antibiotics, or years and years after having Lyme disease, it relapses. There's tons of people that are going through Lyme disease right now that have already tried antibiotics and it didn't work, or that are trying antibiotics right now and it's not working. And so to say that if you take on antibiotics and it doesn't go away, then it wasn't Lyme disease, that's just a silly thing to say when you think about it, because that means that antibiotics aren't targeted. They don't only work for Lyme microbes. They actually kill all types of microbes. So how could it be possible that if you take it and the Lyme disease doesn't die, that you just didn't have Lyme disease? The math doesn't make sense. Your math ain't mathing on that one. So I just think that's complete nonsense. And I've actually talked to thousands of people who still have Lyme disease, but who have taken courses of antibiotics. Personally, when I had Lyme disease, it was attacking my heart, and I made a crazy decision. People thought I was insane, but I did not take antibiotics. Instead, I decided to take herbs, nutrition very seriously, and take my health and my life very seriously. And, remove negative people, reduce stress, do some meditation practices, get in the sauna, use some light exercise in order to open up all my detoxification pathways, use nutrition and diet in order to eat the right foods to keep my body in an alkaline state, and use herbs. And the herbs really bring in the phytonutrients that we can't really get from our diet. And they also provide our body with different compounds that protect our organs and help our body fight back against Lyme disease, so we can take back our body and feel like ourselves again. So specific herbs worked for me, and it was Booner's protocol. And interestingly enough, 49% of people say that Booner's protocol worked best for them. Plus, all these other people are seeing amazing results by using the LymeWars herb box. And I think you should give it a try as well if you have Lyme disease. It's the best product out there for Lyme disease. If you are a utilitarian person, a person that just wants to cut the BS, the nonsense, don't give me all the bells and whistles, just give me the stuff that works so I can take it and get better. I don't want, all the added ingredients. I don't want the benefits of the adaptogens and the crazy, make my brain smarter and ride my bike for me and ring the doorbell and clean the chimney. I don't need all that stuff. All I need is the specific herbs that are recommended by doctors, herbalists, and scientists to help with Lyme disease, the ones that actually kill Lyme microbes better than antibiotics do in vitro. I want those herbs specifically sent to me so I can take them each morning and get better from Lyme disease over time. If that sounds like you, if that's what you want, I put that together for you so that you can have it super quick and easy. So you can stop worrying about where you're going to get your herbs and shopping for herbs and spending a lot of time and energy trying to find each and every individual herb and where you're going to source it from and how you're going to get it and if it's high quality. These are high quality vetted herbs that are tested, pure, natural, and available for you to get right now at LymeDiseaseWars.com. You can get your LymeWars herb box sent directly to your door. It's Booner's protocol. It's the protocol that's worked for the most amount of Lyme disease patients, and we'll send it right to you with little to no hassle. So do yourself a favor, go check that out at LymeDiseaseWars.com. I've dispelled all the myths that have to do with Lyme disease that you're gonna hear at parties from other people that think they know about Lyme disease, but they simply just don't know. So now you know, and you can, stay informed and stay in the know so that when people try to tell you things that aren't true, you can simply just say like, yeah, okay, and just kind of change the subject instead of, arguing with them or trying to tell them the truth unless you really want them to know the truth. Again, if you want, you can go grab your free ebook. I'll put a link to that in the description below. You'll get on my newsletter, and I send a newsletter every single day about tips and tricks for beating Lyme disease, including the mindset and the emotional state that it takes in order to go through a battle and fight back against something that's harming your body every day. And look, if you're struggling, I know how that feels. I've been there. I've been beaten down into the ground by this disease. I felt like I wasn't going to be able to be there for my family in the way that they needed. I know how that feels, and I was able to claw and fight my way back, and now I help other people do the same thing. So if you're interested, get on the email list or go grab your LymeWars herb box. I really want to work with you. I really want to help people heal from Lyme disease. So hit the subscribe button if you like this video. We're putting out videos like this all the time as well. And hit the like button because that tells YouTube that we're making good videos so that YouTube can share our content more and more people will see it so we can help the most amount of people who have Lyme disease as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.